Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you and the ranking member for holding this hearing. As the chairman of the full committee, I appreciate that chairs and rankings who preside over nominations hearings, one of the fundamental responsibilities that we have to move nominees forward. And I appreciate those of my colleagues who have fulfilled that duty during this work period. Congratulations to all the nominees and your families who are with you. This hearing comes at a time when human rights and fundamental freedoms face numerous challenges in our hemisphere, and champions of democracy are needed now more than ever. In Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega has become what he once fought to overthrow, a ruthless dictator. His disdain for democracy and decency are a test to the international community as we confront the rising global tide of authoritarianism. In El Salvador, President Bukele is wielding populism and new digital tools to perpetuate a cult of personality, even as he undermines El Salvador's democratic institutions at an alarming rate. If confirmed, the leadership of each of the nominees here today will be indispensable to confronting the challenges and forging new opportunities for the United States and Latin America and the Caribbean. And let me take a point of personal privilege to briefly recognize Deputy Assistant Secretary Heidi Fulton. Ms. Fulton was a Pearson Fellow in my office from 2009 to 2010. The contributions she made during her time with us, including helping draft the first version of what would later become the OAS Revitalization and Reform Act of 2013 that came into law, were a testament to her decades of experience in Latin America and the Caribbean. I'd like to take credit that all of the successes she's had since then as a result of her time with me, but it's her incredible abilities, and we're glad to see her being considered for the ambassador to Uruguay. Mr. Rodriguez, Nicaragua has been in a state of crisis since April 18th of 2018. That was the day the anti-government protest triggered a years-long wave of repression that has killed 329 people, injured thousands, and condemned 190 political prisoners to arbitrary detention in conditions amounting to torture. The Ortega regime has no shame. They have jailed, expelled, harassed political opponents, former lawyers, business partners, representatives of the Catholic Church. They have shuttered organizations that feed and shelter Nicaraguans. They've closed 8 of the country's universities. They've attempted to withdraw from the Organization of American States, all while cozying up to Russia. They've even kicked out Mother Teresa's missionaries of charity. Nicaragua is on the path to becoming a totalitarian dictatorship. We often talk about how to respond to crises instead of investing more in prevention. Our Renacer Act, which was signed into law last year, lays out a framework for U.S. policy, but we need to act now. So if you are confirmed, what steps would you take to mobilize a robust international strategy to prevent the onset of a deeper humanitarian crisis in Nicaragua?
Thank you, Senator. If confirmed, as you point out, we really need to mobilize voices from across the region and around the world to call out the human rights abuses, to call out the undemocratic actions that the government of Daniel Ortega is taking. And we need to call for the immediate release of the 190 political prisoners that you mentioned. If confirmed, I commit to working with UN Human Rights Council, OAS, our partners in Europe and Canada, to seek their voice and their action in the form of sanctions, to join our efforts to highlight the abuses and to isolate the regime of Daniel Ortega.
Let me follow up with something that Senator Rubio raised. Our Renacer Act lays out congressional guidance on suspending Nicaragua from the CAFTA-DR trade agreement. And I know it's a powerful tool. The same thing with El Salvador. But we entered into these agreements with a universal concept of who we were entering into. Nicaragua certainly does not fall in that category at this point in time. What steps will you take to implement what the law says, and do you commit to keeping this committee informed on a quarterly basis on the nature of Russia's deepening cooperation with Nicaragua?
Yes, Senator, I commit to keeping the committee informed. In addition, if confirmed, sir, I commit to adding my weight to the full implementation of the Renacer Act. As I mentioned, working with USTR and others on the CAFTA-DR question, continuing to implement the act in terms of holding officials in Nicaragua accountable for the human rights abuses. We recently sanctioned another 23 individuals under Section 353. Thanks to the Renacer Act, that is a new capacity that we have, and we're taking full advantage of it. Again, Senator, if confirmed, I will work with our interagency colleagues to maximize the pressure, both through Renacer and all of the tools that the Senate.
I look forward to that. We need a strong voice there. Mr. Chairman, I have the indulgence of the chair for another minute. Mr. Duncan, I was a little surprised at your response to Senator Rubio about President Bukele's popularity. Hitler was popular. Putin is popular in Russia. It doesn't mean that because a person is popular in their country, that in fact we don't press extremely hard on violations of human rights and democracy. Are we agreed on that?
We are indeed agreed on that, Senator.
Okay. So we have an increasing challenging situation in El Salvador, one that threatens both the future of democracy in the country and bilateral relations with the United States. Over the last 2 years, President Bukele has presided over a number of alarming setbacks for democratic governance, undermining judicial independence, intimidating opposition lawmakers by using security forces to occupy the legislature, negotiating political pacts with gangs, regularly attacking journalists and media outlets. And in addition to these actions, Bukele has also repeatedly used his network of Twitter trolls to attack and threaten not only government critics within El Salvador, but also United States officials, including my colleague in the House of Representatives, Congresswoman Norma Torres. It's amazing what he is doing directing against a member of the United States Congress and former Ambassador Gene Mans. So I want to hear from you. Do you commit to prioritizing these issues in discussions with President Bukele and senior officials within his government?
Yes, Senator, I do make that commitment to you, and I must tell you that I think the exchange with regarding Representative Torres was absolutely unacceptable, and I would certainly be happy to make that clear to the Salvadoran government.
What other steps do you believe the United States needs to take to prevent further democratic backsliding in El Salvador?
Senator, I think, first of all, I agree with you. There have been a number of developments in El Salvador over the last 2 years that are concerning when it comes to the strength and the health of Salvador's democracy. I think we have made judicious use of the various sanctions tools that Congress has given us to highlight some of those problems, whether it's the removal of the Supreme Court magistrates in the Constitutional Chamber, the gang truce that you referred to, or other acts of either corruption or acts that tend to undermine democracy. And I think we need to continue using those tools appropriately, judiciously, but we need to keep using them to send the message that El Salvador's best future lies on the path of democracy.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your indulgence. If I just may, I will have a series of questions for the record. I don't want the rest of you to think I have no issues for you. I do. But in deference to my colleagues who are still here, I'd like substantive underlined responses to them before I consider putting you on a business meeting agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Portman.